Today we're going to be talking about the 834 Roses 2021 solicitation that's on the street right now. Just to give you a quick overview of what we're going to do today. It's a high-level overview. I'm going to go through the solicitation, the key parts of the solicitation. For those of you who are used to NASA solicitations, you'll see why we're doing this, because we're trying to do some different things to try to really focus on making an impact on water resources decisions. And those of you who are new to NASA, to give you a bit of an overview of our program and what we're trying to do. One caveat is that there are, especially for new NASA proposers, there are guidelines. There are some other details that I'm not going to get into on submitting. You can ask the technical support on Inspires, or you can send us an email if you have any questions about any of those specifics that we don't address today. And hopefully we'll have time to address questions at the end. If you do have questions during the meeting and you want to put them in the chat, that's fine too. And finally, as you probably saw in the opening message, there will be, this is being recorded, and primarily so we can make sure that whatever information we provide, we can put the specific questions and information that are pertinent to all proposers in an FAQ and publish that along with the solicitation. With that, we're going to go ahead and step through. So I'm going to turn my video off to keep us focused, but I did want to introduce myself. So first, we're going to just talk about the program, the Water Resources Program, which is what is sourcing this solicitation. And it's the applied sciences. It is applied research for water resources. And this is what we focus on: improving efficiency and accuracy of freshwater availability, better predict freshwater availability. That's been a growing item here. It's not just how we monitor, but how can we predict supply and demand, and also quality issues. Optimizing basin level water management. This has also been a key issue with us. We think that the basin level is a good level for us to be at NASA with our observations. It does not preclude us from doing things at the watershed level or broader at a national level or global level also. Better understand water use, and it's in efficiently managing water allocations. What are those decisions? And this includes irrigation management, but also any type of water allocation management decisions. And then, of course, protecting human health and environment with water quality indicators, which is a growing item in our portfolio. Some examples of how we address this: we try to identify gaps and opportunities. That is, what does society need? We don't want to be just doing things. We're applied research, so we don't just do research. We want to do things that are pertinent to decision makers, to all things on understanding our environment and making our environment a better place. Harnessing Earth observations, obviously, we're NASA. But what you should note in the solicitation, it says this: while certainly we expect to see NASA observations in the proposals, we include and actually welcome and encourage other satellite observations, whether they're commercial, whether they're international, whether ground observations, aerial observations, drone observations. We truly believe that most of our decisions are going to be multi-sourced anyway, so let's get on with the integration of these data into other data sets. And some of our partners here, you'll see just an example. Forecast centers are easy ones. They're prime targets of our program. but states, and these are in the U.S., but note that the solicitation, or is our program geographic dependent? We are a global program, so it can be anywhere in the world, and the solicitation does not have a specific geographic focus. And how we do this, how our program's organized. This is more FYI for you just to understand the program you're proposing to. And we explore technology and capabilities, connecting science to decision makers and increasing access to that information. So we do this through a portfolio of research projects, and that's what we're soliciting for right now. We also have a Western Water Applications Office because in the U.S. we do have a strong water issue in the U.S. West, and have for a long time. So we do have a Western Application Office that does focus on that engagement. And we have program activities, meetings, workshops, studies, engagements that we work on. So we use these three pillars as sort of our way of managing and organizing our program. So let's get to the solicitation here, and it's A34 in ROSES 2021. First of all, two areas, the scope. Section 2 is the one that really drives. That's where we spend all our time on, is Section 2 and Section 4. So if you want to know really where to focus, that's where all the content is. First and foremost in this solicitation, the real I guess nuance and uniqueness of this solicitation is we are setting up and allocating resources based upon application readiness levels. We're going to talk about that a bit. There's a link in the solicitation that has a lot of charts that describe the application readiness level. That's how our program, and not just the water resources, the entire applied sciences program manages the projects. And so these are just giving us an indication of where we are in maturity level between basic research and a sustained operational activity. A lot of relation to R2O, research to operations, but as you all know, and I'm sure realize, it does not happen with a flip of a switch. It takes effort to move research into a sustained operations. So we're looking at innovative solutions, as always at NASA. We love creativity. We support an integrated approach, not only with data sets and models, but also with partnerships. And you'll see that throughout the solicitation about the team and what we look for in partnerships between different types of organizations. So the relevant partnerships we talk about, the target that you have for an end user, private companies that may have use for this, other federal agencies, other researchers, all of the above. We don't have, as I said before, any geographic level for this proposal, for the solicitation. We do look at the impact, whether the geography really has an impact and can it be scaled, but it can be anywhere in the world. Proposals that target international applications, we encourage you to team with U.S. business management or policy organizations like our State Department, our USAID, international philanthropic organizations. So it's just to encourage that. There's lots of different ways to partner internationally. There's GEO, there's all sorts of organizations, but we encourage that. Okay. And to get to 2.1, section 2.1, you'll see a description a little bit of the Applied Sciences program and how it's instituted this 9-step ARL activity, and so we track and manage the progression and distribution of the funded projects this way. And there'll be three levels that really will affect us in this in the ARLs, and they're ARL 1 through 3, which is really the discovery and feasibility side of things. So we have basic research, we've seen it proven, we've proven the science. Can we now prove and that can be used to make decisions? And 4 to 6 is to address the development and testing. So we've proven that it can be used for decisions, that we have interested decision makers that will use it. Can we then prove it and test it, use cases, validation? And then 7 to 9 is a focus on, okay, how do we integrate this? Yeah, did we pick and I use this analogy quite a bit, did we build a supercomputing solution for a local water manager? And so, how do we merge this sustainability of this with the capabilities of that end user, and how does that work? And so basically those three levels. And here's this blow up of this chart. If you hit the link in the solicitation, you're going to get a description of each one of these ARL levels. So there's a lot more information. It's somewhat of a new concept, but just recently we're really pleased to see the Canadian Agricultural Research Organization, Agriculture and Food Agency, I don't know if I have that right, AAFC, is using this type of format also for their solicitation. So there's some pickup of this. Okay, in section 2.2, you'll see the proposal recommendations. And so in section 2.1 is really the scope. This is the box that we're looking for. And in section 2.2, we're really looking for then, we're trying to provide some guidance, some helpful hints, some recommendations and ideas. At least one NASA Earth observation product and model should be used, and so that's one of the recommendations. We're going to talk about the categories, and so when you get up to the higher ARLs, which are going to be category 2 and 3, you should start to be thinking and including sustainable solutions. What are those? Does this end user use a GIS that we have to be integrated with? Do they expect things on the cloud? All those types of issues. And then proposals are encouraged to be really articulate about the impact. Are we doing something just because we can? Or are we doing something because it will have an impact? Faster decision making, more accurate decision making, it will save time, save money, all those types of things. And finally, in the recommendations, we really encourage you to, one, if you are using NASA data, to have some foreknowledge of the NASA science and model and sensors, or someone you have talked to, whether it's at the DAX, whether it's with the mission, with the data sets, and then of course, and finally, but very important, is our program, as does NASA, really values a diverse scientific community. One of the things we really pride ourselves on is trying to expand and reach out in our science community to those, especially early career, but of all backgrounds, all gender, and so we're race and everything. So please consider that in your proposal when you're putting together your teams. Okay, let's talk about the categories. Real quickly, category 1. We're really looking at projects that we're going to fund at the 75 to 150K level. And this will be at the start at ARL2. So you'll notice there, and it ends at 3 and 4. And so I'm highlighting the end ARLs there. So it's really meant to take things and really take advantage of all the basic research that have been out there that have proven that that this is a great concept. It's proven, and we can move it forward to applied research. And so some of the topics that we are seeing in this area relate to artificial intelligence, relate to water quality monitoring and salinity, seasonal to subseasonal water resource forecasting. I know there's a lot of S2S stuff going on out there, but we really want to focus on water resource or water resource indicators, approaches to multi-sensor and multi-scale assessments, and this is that integration approach. How are we integrating ground sensors, new sensing capabilities, UAVs, airborne, commercial sats, or commercial small sats, and also in this particular category 1, we realize we're ways away from transition. So we don't need a transition plan in this particular category. And once again, to remind you, and this is with all our applied research, is that basic research is considered non-compliant. We've got a huge basic research program, a terrestrial hydrology program that focuses on that. So that ARL1, we will respond and say, hey, there's other sources of funding for that type of research. And I apologize, I forgot that slide there on ARL2. And that you have all this information in the solicitation itself. So with category 2, this is more in the middle, and so this is really reaching in and really moving up to ARL 5, 6, or 7. That's what we're really aimed to do there. And so the teams are encouraged to submit proposals for these types of projects too. It says it does not need to include a transition plan also in category 2, but you should have an idea of what those transitions are going to be. Teams are encouraged to submit proposals, adaptation to climate change, climate smart, put your word behind it, and a lot of that has to do with water management, drought response, cascading threats to water supply and quality, infrastructure issues, forecasting, post-fire impacts on water supply and water quality. A lot of agriculture. It seems to be a never-ending type of activity that we need to continue to work on. The water-related agriculture applications, and then of course, other topic areas that are very relevant. Okay, this is the category 3. Then is really some of us has called this the last mile, but we've done a lot of work on the applied research end. And now we're really getting in, how do we transition this? How do we get this into full operation with a partner? And category 3 will support that work. So this you may have been funded in the past, or you may have worked on something over the years that have really built up some basic research into improving the case. You have a partner that's really going to be engaged and use this. So this is one where you really want to have a clear description of the impacts and benefits, and how the application meets those requirements, as well as a detailed transition strategy. Very important, because as important as going through these ARLs and doing this applied research, the transition can be somewhat of its own activity, because you have to really look at the whole sustainable tools, how you're going to integrate it. You may have to have training included in things like this to make sure that it is sustained. Category 3 projects will aim for a full adoption of the application by the partners. So this really means that the partner will, I'll say, own it. They are in front of it. They may implement it in different fashion. You may commercialize parts of it, but they are really in charge of it at the end of this. And obviously open to any topical water resources management need in this case. Okay, section 2.2, proposal recommendations. Again, we went through this before, so this is a redundant slide that we didn't catch. My apologies. But section 3 this is standard in all our solicitations, but this has all the information you'll need on how much per year, and I have that next to each category we're targeting, how many years, when we expect to start these projects, 4 months after step 2. So really targeting at the end of the calendar year, starting these projects, and the total amount. So these are per year dollar awards, and that's an estimate for us. The next section to look at is section 4, or obviously I hope you read all of the solicitation, but section 4 will give you some ideas on the process and the evaluation. And for those of you that haven't done an applied sciences proposal in the past, you will notice that in applied research proposals at NASA, we do evaluate well beyond the guidelines that NASA has. So you always lean on the NASA guidelines, relevance, intrinsic merit, and cost, and then then you add. The program can add per solicitation specific things that we're looking for, and applied research always does, because we have unique things we're trying to accomplish. And the second is the process. This is a 2-step proposal submission process. So I'm going to talk primarily about the step 1. There's a lot of information in section 4 on the step 2 and the content, but I really want to talk about the step 1 because that's coming up, the deadline at the end of May. And I want that to be clear about that process. So this 2-step proposal process, we'll review the step 1 proposals, and we're going to make decisions. We'll then provide feedback to the proposer, and it will be encourage or discourage. So this is a non-binding 2-step. Now let me explain what that means when I say non-binding. Actually, it doesn't matter if we send a note back and say we discourage this proposal for a step 2. It doesn't bind you to that. You can still propose, and if we encourage it, you can say no, I'm not going to propose. So it's non-binding. It's meant to help you, and then help us give some guidance to proposers, so we have better proposals. But it's non-binding. That means if we do say you're discouraged, you can still submit a step 2 proposal. And then, but one thing you should be aware, one thing that is binding is that you have to submit a step 1 to submit a step 2. So you can't skip the step 1 process. You have to submit a step 1 in order to submit a step 2. So I hope that's clear. It isn't hugely complicated, and all the text is in section 4. The proposal content, okay, it's not to exceed 6 pages. These are meant to be short. They're meant to be concepts. You should have a starting ARL. And you'll see that description of application readiness levels. How the process, you should have in there how the proposed effort will impact information flow. So this gives us an idea that you have, the proposer has some idea of how the data will be used. And there may be some ambiguity somewhere, and there may be multiple users in the end, but you have an idea of how the data that you're producing would be used by an end user to make decisions. If it is a category 1, you know, there should be a sound, hey, we have a scientific basis for this process, for this data product, for this model, whatever it is, and evidence that the proposed research will successfully address a need. And then category 2 and 3, we really expect to have a really, really sound understanding of the user and the user requirements and how those capabilities described in the project will be transitioned. And so largely in section 3, but even section 2, even though there's a transition process, there will be you have to have some knowledge of how it can be transitioned, and provide high-level project schedule. So very high level, but an idea of, okay, I understand how I'm going to get from here to here in the time frame that we have. So this is step 1. This is in those 6 pages. Evaluation criteria for step 1. Just to highlight some things in section 4.1.2, one of those that it's worthwhile just to print out, because in the end that's how this is what I use when I have review panels. I take that section that says evaluation criteria and we table it, we map it out, and that's how we evaluate the proposal. So this is, we take it very seriously. And of course, it should have merit, responsiveness, and relevance to warrant submission. And those are somewhat subjective, but hopefully we gave you enough guidance in section 2 in the scope that you understand what we're talking about. Step 1 will have no individualized feedback either. We can't, even if we say we encourage, we can't say, hey, but if you just did this, or you should do this, because then we have to give that same feedback to everybody. So there will be no individualized feedback. It will be strictly an encouraged or discouraged. And the submission of the step 1 proposal is required, as I stated before. And I said this earlier about the submission of the step 1 proposal is not a commitment to submit a step 2. So things happen, life happens, and you may decide that it isn't worth it. Due dates, and unfortunately how they do it at NASA is that the water resources table, there's a link in the solicitation that goes to a table that then has all the due dates in them. But I'm showing you those here. So September and May. Okay. With that, I'm going to leave it here and address any questions. I know we probably have questions in the chat.
No, it's just like the picture.
And if you could, if you do have a question that you'd like to not put in the chat and say verbally, if you could just put it in the chat that you have a question, and I'll try to, because I don't think we have a hand raising in this.
Hi, Brad, this is Sarah. I've been monitoring the chat box, and so maybe instead of having you read through all the questions, I can ask you a few that have not yet been addressed.
Okay.
So the first one is some clarification on the funding. Is the funding amounts that are listed, is that per year or for the total award over multiple years?
Per year.
Per year, okay. Okay. Second question, which DAC archives data from NASA Applied Sciences?
all the DACs. All the DACs. And so there's NASA organizes its DACs uniquely by missions and some by thematic area. We have a lot of our radar data in Alaska, our ice DAC, and in Oceans DAC, have the ocean data. We have their land DAC at Aeros, and so unfortunately, that's how it's organized, which is actually one of the reasons we need an applied research program, because it isn't easy to access the NASA data.
Hey Brad, this is Devjani Singh from Oak Ridge National Lab, and I am with the ORNL DAC. So, like I work at the ORNL DAC also. So this was my question.
Oh.
So more specific, so where does the water resources data, like from previous year's projects go to? Does it go to CDAC or any other DAC? Means where would you prefer the data from the projects to be, like archived at? Or does it just depends on whoever takes it in?
Yeah, the question, yeah, is the goal of the Water Resources Applied Research Program is that the data will be owned by an end user, a decision-making body, an organization that's responsible for those decisions. And so, the simple ones like NOAA or USGS, but it could be another organization. They may access, and they will access, the NASA data, and usually through the DACs, to download it and turn it into a water resources project. And so there are times when the DACs can, accept it, but those are very specialized. And so the goal of this solicitation is that another end user would take ownership of the data product or the model, and they would process it and take care of it.
Okay, so what about the what about the category 1 proposals?
Category 1, the only if you do create a model that creates a data set, that would still be, as long as it's in the ARL scheme, it's going to be owned by the PI. Now,
okay.
You're touching upon an issue that NASA is trying to grapple with, and it's this whole open science activity. So, but I'm not going to go there because I think it's going to confuse everybody at this point in time on how do we share, store algorithms, papers, intermediate data products, all of those things. But for this solicitation, I think that answer is the appropriate one.
Yes, thank you very much. I was going in that direction from the data management perspective of probably the step 2, but thank you for your answer. I get it.
Brad, we have quite a few more questions. Let me couple a few together. One of them was, when will the decision from step 1 be known? What is the timeline for turnaround on step 1? So same question. And how do we interpret a discouraged response from step 1?
Okay. The discouraged response, you should interpret that it just didn't meet the needs of the solicitation at this time. Okay, it could be, it was not within scope that we felt. It could be that we were looking for a different type of what I would say end user we didn't think was appropriate or wasn't articulated. So when you do get discouraged, if you do want to have a chat privately about that, you have every right to contact me and say, hey, you know, I just want to have a chat about this. It won't change, but you can get some, not how you could correct it, but we can have a chat about the idea, the concept, and that sort of thing.
Great, thanks. Are references included in the 6 pages?
References, I thought that was in the instructions. We will get an answer to that out on whether the references are part of the 6 pages. I don't believe so, but don't. Let me stop. Let us get an answer out to you to make sure. I could actually.
Brad,
Suggested-
Brad, I think I can clarify that. References are not included in the 6-page limit.
Thanks, Forrest.
I would, if I may, I'd add that a discouraged response should probably be interpreted as meaning that, in the opinion of the panel, the proposed concept has a low probability of being, the proposal would have a lower probability of being selected in the round 2.
Great. The suggested topic areas in the different categories seem to target different areas. Is there a reason for this?
Absolutely. Remember, these were encouraging, but this is what our program is seen as areas where we see gaps in moving lower ARL activity and research, and where we see the need in the mid ARL levels, where we've seen a lot of interesting and good capabilities coming out of basic research, getting tested, interested users, so that is in the category 2. And then when you look at category 3, it really is depending on the, you know, there has to be a lot of work that's already been done on that application research, applied research. So that's why we're not really defining anything there. It really depends on the project itself, because by that time you've actually proven the applied research is needed. You have interested users, you've developed out and validated the process. Remember, those are encouraged. You know, that doesn't preclude great ideas coming from the proposers.
And some clarification on the length. Someone mentioned that they're seeing 1 year to 3 years. Is that specific to category, or is it up to the proposer?
Yeah, it's up to the proposer. It's a bit of standard language we use. We have normally 3-year projects, partly of how we get funded, but also partly on length. But you can propose 1 year, and you can also propose 3 years or 2 years. So it's meant to give the proposer some flexibility depending on their situation and type of project they have.
Some clarification on what's to be included on the step 1 6 pages. First, does it require a budget to be included in those 6 pages? And second, the letters of support from partnering agencies are not included in the 6 pages. Is that correct?
Yes, there is not a budget, and that's a great question. We don't evaluate cost in the step 1s. It's strictly the idea that we're evaluating at that point, and so thanks for catching that. That should have been part of my presentation, but it is in the solicitation, in the evaluation criteria for the step 1. It's in section 4.
Great. We have some possible project-specific questions. Does a post-fire impact to water supply have to include both water quantity and quality, or can only water quantity be included?
No, water quality is definitely included. So whether it's water supply, water demand, water quality, that's all part of our, don't limit that scope.
Although wildfire can cause both floods and water supply shortages, floods should not be addressed in the proposal. Is that correct?
I don't think we're precluding floods. We do have some other programs that do solicit specifically for flood impact or on flooding and disasters. So it's hard to do water quantity and not be thinking about either oversupply or undersupply. So I don't think we would preclude anything that would say that, hey, I've got a tool that can more effectively make decision oversupply. I would encourage you that if you do something related to flooding, if it is really targeting response to flooding, we have a big disasters program that's built around that, and that's something we'll put in the FAQ that we would probably want that to be in another program area, that proposal in another program area.
If a proposal is prepared by multiple institutes, how do they submit it? Should one institute submit or should it be shared? And if so, how do they prepare a budget?
Yeah, we've had that type of question in the past. Can you have multiple PIs? Unfortunately, we do restrict it's just our procurement system and how we do awards to a single PI. Has to be in charge. Obviously, you could have partners. You know, in implementation, they can be co-equal, but there has to be one PI that really is in charge, and they submit the proposal. And we do encourage, and it's in the solicitation too, to if at all possible, especially in category 3 and category 2, to have the end users lead the proposal if that's possible. We know that's not always possible. It's not a requirement, but we encourage the end users to be as fully engaged. It really translates to successful projects when you have those end users engaged, those organizations engaged in the project as early as possible.
Right, Sarah, just to answer the second part of the question, the budgets for the partner institutions should be included in, well, in the step 2 proposals, budgets from all partners need to be included in the proposal submitted.
Correct. Yeah, the one PI, the one submission would include, which means, yeah, for instance, if you were a PI university and NOAA, you know, a researcher from NOAA was on your team, you would have to have the NOAA budget and the organization, the university budget in the one submission, and it has to be rolled up as one proposal and then broken out. And this is in step 2, remember, so we're getting down the road a little bit. So maybe, yeah, if you have further questions on that at the step 2 process, we can answer those. So I don't want to take up too much time with that.
Can the proposal aim to use data from future launches?
It can aim. It's always encouraged to, you know, look at NASA and say, hey, you have SWAT coming on or NICER coming on, and so this would merge well. What we really caution, though, with applied research is we're not depending upon that. So you don't build an application that is solely dependent on a NICER launch. It's nice to see that dovetail of the new launches and the new decadal survey launches. But with 3 years, you know, we'll probably barely be pushing out the SWOT and NICER data at the end of it. So it's not practical from a project standpoint to include that as a key deliverable.
Can multiple step ones be submitted by the same PI on different topics?
The answer is yes.
Regarding budgets, are budgets proposed in step one required to be the same as they're submitted in step two, or can there be changed given some changes in scope, personnel, etc.?
No budgets are required in step one, and in fact, when you read the step one guidance, the only thing we're expecting we require in the step two is that the PI is the same. So actually, even the team can change, but the concept has to be still solid. So, but we understand in the step one is meant to be, not, you're not really developing agreements with other organizations, and it's really an initial thought. So team members can change, PI is stay the same, and certainly the concept has to stay the same. So if we get a totally different proposal, that certainly won't bode well.
Can academics who partner with non-academic nonprofits submit a proposal together? Would subcontracting be allowed?
Yes.
If a proposal has been rejected from another NASA program, does it have a negative impact if it is resubmitted to this program?
No. Sorry, I'm trying to be clear, so we can so there as little ambiguity as possible. I know that's not
Perfect. Okay, regarding the suggestion for international applications, how would you suggest showing partnerships with U.S. Foreign Service agencies, NGOs, etc., by including support letters? That's a question. By including support letters?
Yes,
including
that's
participants.
normal, yeah, that's a normal way. Having them as co-Is, as members and collaborators, is very impactful, and support letters.
And just going back to an earlier question that we didn't get answered, what is the turnaround on the phase one proposals? What timeline do they expect to hear back?
The time, I'll give you a range with the review process. It will be in June, and that's the best I can give right now, because it will depend on the number of proposals and how fast the system gets through. But we will jump on them right away because we know we need to get the step twos rolling.
Could category one topics such as seasonal to sub-seasonal water resource forecasting be served as the major task in category two proposal?
Okay, I don't know if I caught what the question was. If one of the program managers understands it better, they go ahead and respond.
I believe they're asking, can a topic area that was identified for one of the categories be used in another category?
The answer is yes. Remember, those category, the topic areas are meant to be encouraged, so that it's really us trying to just help give some guidance on where we see things, but it isn't an evaluation criteria.
Great. So we only have a few more. So if you have other questions, please enter them into the chat box. So the next question, could the application be focused on urban water management, such as improving operation of combined sewer systems?
Yes.
For proposals covering more than one state, do you need a partner in every region or just some of them? For example, can you model snowmelt for the Western US but have partners in only 3 states?
Yeah, I'm going to say that it depends. I get the point of, I think the critical element there is who's who are the key decision makers in this, and sometimes applied research can be implemented and should be implemented by starting with the use case and getting one decision maker to start using it. So I'd be clear, especially in the step 2, if there's a state missing or not included, but say the key ones are, and that's how you're going to build it. So I would say the answer there is depends, but I could see it that would be a reality. I could see that happening.
Can non-US organizations be paid through this program as a subcontractor?
Only for services. If you go to the NASA guidelines, we can't pay for researchers from foreign countries and foreign entities, but we can pay for services. So if there's groundwork that has to be done, so you have to watch that. That's one of those that it'd be worth getting clarified, to be clear about before the step 2 is submitted, just to make sure that we're covering it. But obviously we do global work. We work with global organizations, so we're used to addressing it.
It's encouraged to have NASA scientists on the proposal team. Do you have any tips for identifying where research priorities best overlap or where synergies exist with specific NASA personnel and the best way to reach out? Naturally, this is a tough process.
Yeah, I hate to say it depends. Certainly the NASA centers and the water programs at the NASA centers are good places to start. It might be worthwhile to send the Water Resources Program, specifically me, a specific question that I'm interested in doing this application and using soil moisture that is based on SMAP data, and just would like to know who I can connect with. I wish it was much more organized than that, that we had a really great website and you could really get to that. But I think right now that would be the best way. It's very different if it's precip or something else. Okay.
Great. And 2 direct questions. Is soil moisture included in water resources? And can a proposal only address water supply quantity but not quality?
First question, soil moisture is, and I think we answered the quantity and quality. The answer is we address both quality and quantity.
Is the program encouraging early career scientists as PIs or as part of the project team?
Both.
Could you clarify, should support letters be submitted in step 1?
The support letters aren't required for step 1s.
Can we propose to analyze the effect that multiple storm events over time have on surrounding coastal urban areas and quantify the protective ability of different mangrove ecotypes from hurricane winds and storm surge?
So getting close to step 1 there. The answer is yeah. And maybe I should have been clear. I don't want to. This session shouldn't be evaluating concepts and ideas for projects.
For category 3, is full integration into one end user's organization's decision making just as good as into multiple or regional decision making applications?
It can be. I could certainly see, as you guys know, how we make decisions on water allocation, water quality, just depends across the board. So it really depends on the product, but certainly one organization sometimes has huge impact. And so I wouldn't use that. And that is not a qualifier. And so either is appealing to this program.
I'll just quickly address a question asking if it is limited to U.S. territory. The answer is no, you can study Australia.
Correct.
And then the last question is, are organizations that have existing partnerships that we can leverage with water forecasting groups sufficient to cover quote unquote partnership on the grant, or do we need to directly connect with each of the end use stakeholders?
Existing partnerships, I'm not quite certain. Existing partnerships with the PI.
Brad, this is Carl Richter. That was my question. I'm talking about like agencies, like groups that, you know, have long-standing partnerships with, say, water forecasting or other agencies. You know, one of the things here is if you're going large scale, like, does the PI who's sort of doing the science have time to reach out to, you know, like say 5 or 10 agencies that are doing forecasting? Or would that be sufficient to sort of have someone with experience, you know, sort of doing that part of the project?
Yeah, I get your point. It's almost on the project management standpoint. What's the most effective way of teaming and partnering? And so, you know, I would say, you know, to answer your question, you know, leveraging existing partnerships and leveraging people that have the existing partnerships is always appealing, and it is a way to help implement. I would make sure that in the step 2s, especially that's clearly documented and identified, and so that when the panel evaluates it, they see that, hey, you said there was a partnership with so and so, but you know, so okay, I see how you are partnering with them. So I would say the answer is yes.
Thank you.
And thanks, Forrest, for putting the guidebook out on the non-US organization guidance.
So Brad, there's only one more question written there that we can answer. Maybe we can cut it off and talk about how we'll be posting the recording and the FAQs. The last question, did we get, if a step 2 proposal is made for category 3, will NASA potentially fund it at a lower category 2 level?
Made at a category 3, will NASA potentially fund it at category 2 level? So I think, let me rephrase the question so I can answer it. I can see this situation coming up where you submit for a category and the panel, let's say, oh yeah, we really like, but we really think this is a category 1, or we really think this is a category 2. And so how that would happen is, you know, this is getting into the step 2, okay, evaluation. So just to clarify with the group, you know, how that would normally happen is, you know, we would not kick it out. Hey, great proposal, but you put it in the wrong category, so you're out. I think the how the response would be is it would be awarded, and then at award we'd have a discussion about the category and what ARLs we are. So we understand too that the ARLs can sometimes, you know, be confusing, and you know, and we may have a different perspective on it than the proposer, and so that's how we will respond to those items if we as a program think it should be in a different category. But if it's a good, you know, bottom line is we want good projects. So that's the bottom line.
Great, Brad, it's 4 o'clock, so if you want to wrap it up and close it out.
Okay, thanks everybody. I appreciate your time and your interest in our program. We hope you consider it. We think we have a lot of important problems to solve, and we think that Earth observations aren't a panacea, but they are critical to helping us solve those. So I hope you propose to our program. We will be now reviewing both the chat and the recording, and how this is going to be published will be FAQ, how it's published on NSPIRES as an FAQ. We are still looking at and trying to get an answer on how, if the recording will be also published along with this. But either way, you'll have copies of the FAQ, which go through the questions and answers. And as you'll notice, when I did the presentation, I stuck to the solicitation. So the presentation really is the solicitation. And so I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks so much for your interest. And at this point, we'll shut down the conference. Thank you.